multiplication and division of complex numbers. So if we're given the complex number z sub 1 equals r sub 1 times cosine of theta sub 1 plus I sine of theta sub 1, and z sub 2 equals r sub 2 times cosine of theta sub 2 plus I sine of sub 2 theta sub 2. The product and quotient of z sub 1 and z sub 2 are given by the following formulas. So if we want to multiply them, the product formula says we take the product of r sub 1 and r sub 2 times the cosine of the sum of the angles. So we add the angles together, and we multiply the modulus or the radius values together. Oops. And if we want to find the quotient, we divide the radius values and we subtract the angle measures. Alright, so for example, if z equals 4 times the cosine of 90 plus I times the sine of 90, and w equals 2 times the cosine of 45 degrees plus I times the sine of 45 degrees, for the product, we'll do 4 times 2 times the cosine of 90 plus 45 plus I times the sine of 90 degrees plus 45 degrees. And so we've got 8 times the cosine of 135 degrees plus I times the sine of 135 degrees. And if we want to find the quotient, we'll do 4 divided by 2 times the cosine of 90 degrees minus 45 degrees plus I times the sine of 90 degrees minus 45 degrees. And so we'll get 2 times the cosine of 45 degrees plus I times the sine of 45 degrees. And because they said to keep our answers in polar or trig form, that's why we're stopping there. If we wanted to know in standard form, then we would actually evaluate the cosine of 45 degrees, the sine of 45 degrees, distribute the two, and get our standard form. But they wanted it in polar trig form, so we leave it like that. The radius times the cosine of theta plus I times the sine of theta. All right, so a couple more examples here. So again, product, we're going to take the two r values and multiply them. So we're going to take the 16 times the 2, and I'm going to get 32 times, for the cosine, for theta, I've got to add these two numbers together. So 142 plus 20 gives me 162 degrees plus I times the sine of 162 degrees. If we want the quotient, we're going to divide 16 and 2. So 16 divided by 2 gives me 8, and I'm going to subtract 142 and 20, and so I'll get 122 degrees. And again, since they want it in polar trig form, we stop right there. All right, so number 14, with these two, again, to find the product, we're going to multiply these two, the two radii values. So 20 times 5 gives us 100. And then we're going to add 5 pi over 3 and pi fourths. So 5 pi over 3 plus pi fourths. We got to get a common denominator. Least common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. So if I multiply this one by 4 over 4 and this one by 3 over 3, we will get 20 pi over 12 plus 3 pi over 12. And so now I'm able to add them, and I'll get 23 pi over 12. So almost 2 pi down there in quadrant 4 plus I times the sine of 23 pi over 12. All right, quotient, we're going to divide. So 20 divided by 5 gives us 4, and we're going to subtract. So 20 pi twelfths minus 3 pi twelfths gives us 17 pi twelfths. This will be the cosine of 17 pi over 12 plus I times the sine of 17 pi over 12. All right, and so that's how we multiply or divide complex numbers that are in polar or trig form.